All right, welcome to the first Big Ten Edge podcast with me and Walt. And Walt, we had this idea to start a Big Ten podcast, so this is where we'll see how this goes swimmingly. I think it's going to go pretty good. I think the people are going to love our takes too, so that'll be fun. So,
Definitely, definitely. Especially coming from the angle we come from. I think we're both NFL draft driven,
yep.
pretty heavy too. So there'll be plenty of NFL draft talk throughout this season on all of these teams, all 18 teams in the Big Ten. Why not just
hmm
call it the Big 18?
I have no idea. I've wondered the same thing. Like I really have. Like why they don't like just called. I think it's for marketing purposes, obviously, but like
Yeah,
at the
historically
same
too.
time, come on, man. Like we all know that like this ain't the Big Ten no more. Like, just be honest,
But question, I got a question for you. I think a lot of other people out there had too when this stuff all started happening. Well, it all started roughly close to 10 years ago, I think, once a lot of these big TV deals started to take over and teams started to move around, and a lot of these schools started to say, screw tradition, we're about the big bucks now. Does it still feel weird to you that UCLA is in the same conference as us?
yeah. Well,
USC and
I mean, I don't know if you've seen that post that I had on my Facebook, but like seeing USC wear the Big Ten patch and Oregon wear the Big Ten patch, like I was like, when, when did you become Big Ten guys? And then it was even funnier because if you watch ACC, that's even funnier because you got Stanford and Cal in the
yeah,
ACC, which is like, wait, they're on the Pacific Coast.
yeah.
That's the Atlantic Coast Conference. It just didn't make any sense. But let's get to some of these scores. I obviously we'll run through some of these garbage teams, but we got to talk about.
Hey now, hey now. Hey now, we represent the Big Ten. There is no
All right, well,
garbage in our. Well, hold up. Let me
when
not
you're go,
offend Northwestern.
when you're going against like teams that I have to like go research their logo and like I can't find it anywhere, I gotta do it myself. We know we hit rock bottom, bro. Like the Indiana State Sycamores. I thought Sycamore Bishop was a fake school. I didn't know. I
They
didn't know
said
they was actually a
Sycamore
school.
Bishop.
You remember that stuff? That was insane. Oh man. Anyways, we start with Oregon and Idaho. Now Oregon struggled in this game, but Dylan Gabriel was great. I'm interested to hear your take because you like Dylan Gabriel. I do too, but I don't know why the hell this game was as close as it was. It's kind of like a week one type of game, but it didn't seem right for any sort of stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. My thing with Gabriel, man, for him to be so small, they throw him out there. Now it's different, completely different coming from the Pac-10, Pac-12 to the Big Ten. It's completely different brand style of football. It gets colder in most of these games, most of these states. The deeper you start getting into late October, early November, can he play? Can he sustain in that type of weather? Once the ground gets harder, the football gets harder. You start talking about playing in a lot of snow, a lot of rain up in East Lansing, Penn State for that matter, Northwestern, Ohio State. But it struck me as odd that he threw the ball that damn much. Because he was
Yeah,
41 to 49.
yeah.
49?
I I was
Like
I was
it's
I was a little bit
against
shocked.
Idaho?
Yeah, I didn't really understand that. Like to be honest, like I don't know what their game plan was going into the game. Like to be honest, like if you're throwing 41 passes against Idaho, I mean, I don't know, man. Like that was a weird stat line. Like, and they didn't run the ball much, which was very interesting. That because the game didn't even seem like at the end of the fourth quarter. I mean, at the end of the first half, it was 14-0, and then it was 14-7 after three, and they never found their footing. Like it was weird. It was totally weird. But when you got a quarterback that like is thrown 49 times, I mean, it was impressive that his quarterback rating was 162.3 for as many times as he throws. I mean, that tells you how good he is. But I didn't understand anything about that game. Like I don't know about you, but like it was
It
just
felt more so like a let's get a leg up on the Heisman type of game. Like I'm gonna send you out there. I'm gonna let you just throw the ball all over the yard, and things didn't transpire or unfold the way I think they thought it would.
No,
If you would have told me Gabriel, because 41 of 49, only 80 completions, 41 completions is wild. I don't care what type of offense you're playing in, 41 completions is wild. And to only generate 24 points, if you would have told me he threw the ball 49 times and had 41 completions and they were just stuck at 24, I would think you were crazy. But yeah, I don't know. It's different. I don't know how much to make of it because this is Oregon, USC, UCLA, all these teams in a different conference, getting used to a whole lot of different things now. Even though Idaho doesn't play in our conference, and on a week to week basis in college football nowadays, you don't know. Considering with the transfer portal and everything's going on, you don't know what type of talent you're going to be matched up against. But I mean, it's week one. They got the win. If they wouldn't have got the win, if they would have ended up looking like Florida State or somebody, um, we would view them completely differently, man. So
I,
he didn't look like my boy DJ for sure.
I gotta say, I don't know what Jonathan Smith did to DJ last year to make him productive, but the fact that DJ was not productive in Florida State, which I think Norvell is an idiot, anyways. That's just my opinion.
Ooh-wee.
But it's like, what did you do to get DJ that good? Like I don't know I can't believe the quarterback I'm watching. Like he was rated above CJ Stroud at one point in the recruiting process.
And Bryce Young.
And yeah, well, but I think Bryce Young was ahead of him by like
a year ahead.
Yeah, but it's fascinating to see how bad he's been. Like I was totally amazed with that. Like I don't know about you, but that Florida State game, I think Boston College is going to be a tough team to play against. I know Michigan State plays them in a couple weeks, so that'll be interesting.
Man, I've been probably the biggest DJ Uyunglele apologist out there. I've been a fan of his since high school. He looks and you know I'm a big traits guy. He looks the part. I remember when he was in high school, I predicted he was going to be the number 1 overall pick in like 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't know if he peaked in high school. It's just something weird. Like after that Notre Dame game, when he came in during the COVID season, he looked bad against Notre Dame. And it's like things just went downhill. I kind of looked at him, even though I understand Clemson and DJ aren't in the Big Ten, but I kind of looked at DJ in a situation where, okay, Dabo Swinney, he's concrete on what he likes to do defensively with his defensive linemen. He's concrete offensively in what he wants his quarterbacks to do. You look at the style of quarterbacks he's always had, even Cade Klubnik for that matter. Klubnik can move around. He can run some RPO for that matter. It just always felt like at Clemson, like you took him in DJ, a guy that is completely anti everything that you want in your quarterbacks, and you tried to force him to do things that he wasn't comfortable doing. Now you're right. When he went to Oregon State, and people still kind of poo-pooed him at Oregon State last year, I thought he was decent. I saw that there were guys. His receivers dropped a lot of balls last year too at Oregon State. I thought he played pretty well. I just don't know, man.
Year. He was good at Oregon State last year, so
I still got hopes for him though. I may be foolish. I may be just a foolish dreamer, but I still have hopes for DJ Uyunglele. He's a good kid, man. He's religious. I've heard him talk in a lot of interviews. He kind of speaks like he doesn't really need football though, and that's what's kind of scary about it.
Yeah. Well, the thing I think about DJ is like, I feel like the one we've talked about before, especially in the draft process, I feel like the one thing that has hurt DJ the most is Dabo Swinney and the way he coaches, and then going to Mike Norvell. I think if DJ went to like a guy, if Jonathan Smith did a good job with him at Oregon State, so I can't look at that and go, okay, obviously he could do something with him. But I look at a guy like Dabo Swinney, and like he's got Cade Klubnik. He's not doing good. He's not doing a great job. Trevor Lawrence at times looked erratic, and he never fixed that. DJ never fixed DJ's foibles. He just wanted a new quarterback. I mean, it just goes to show you that maybe Dabo Swinney's ways are kind of going by the wayside. Him not using the transfer portal is also an issue, but Mike Norvell is not a coach that's going to speak, he's not the quarterback whisperer like some of these coaches. So I feel like if DJ would have went to like a God, if he would have went to like a SC or I know he wouldn't have been starting over Miller Moss, but if he would have went to a team like that, like even a small team like I mean, even like God, I'm trying to think like Cincinnati or Wisconsin, like maybe he could have become a better player. But I think Florida State's a different kind of animal. I think that they kind
What
of
about Michigan
that's an interesting one. I
within
don't
that pro style offense?
I think that Michigan would kind of I don't think they got the wide receivers to help them. Like if you think about it, like they didn't bring any wide receivers. I mean, I like Tyler Morris a little bit. I like Colston Loveland's an NFL pro prospect. We know that for
Yeah.
sure. But like, I don't know if he would have done good at Michigan either. Like, a team that would have been interesting for him would have been Ohio State because of the weapons that he has around him, and like obviously they could have hid some of his weaknesses. But at Florida State, it's totally different. Like, I just feel like Mike Norvell is way over his head. I feel like last year was a total
They lost a
misnomer.
lot of people too.
I felt like that was like his
Yeah.
best team, and I felt like that was a misnomer. Like it's kind of like those the coach that gets one thing right, and he never rebounds after that. So that's what I think. So
But
all right,
back
let's
to
go
the
to
Big Ten.
yeah, back to the Big Ten. Washington beat Weber State. Weber State. We don't need to go through this because Weber State. I had to look for their logo, and that was not fun. But
I don't
I
even know
wanna
Weber State for anything other than basketball. I think college basketball. Just being honest, I'm not even trying to disrespect them like that. It's just some of these schools like UCLA. Like when I think of UCLA, I think of college basketball. I don't really think of college football like that.
No, but this game was awesome. I don't know. I know you
Yeah.
watched this game, and,
Yeah.
and I'm interested to hear your things because I look at this game and I thought I saw pro talent all over that effing field, man, all over that field, and I was surprised by USC's defense being as good as it was because honestly, if we're going to be totally honest with each other, I didn't think they had it in them, and LSU once again chokes in a big moment in game one, which is what LSU does, and I thought that was interesting. But Miller Moss looked very, very good, and I was really surprised by what Miller Moss did against LSU. What was your thoughts?
I was very impressed. Very impressed. He showed a ton of poise in the big moments. He showed a ton of poise earlier once LSU started making some plays defensively. Don't know how far to really go with it. I think Caleb Williams was the one USC quarterback probably since Carson Palmer that people really got behind as like a concrete number one overall pick, can't miss type of prospect. People felt that way about Matt Barkley for a couple years. Barkley turned out to be what Barkley turned out to be. Sanchez, for that matter. Keaton Slovis, who spent had a cup of coffee there and then transferred to like 4 other schools. But yeah, Moss looks the part. He looks like he may be that next guy up. Not truly sold on how good, but yeah, considering the people USC also lost offensively,
Yeah.
he looked pretty good. He looked pretty good.
Yeah, what I was surprised about with Miller Moss and especially the SC team was I didn't think Miller Moss was that good, and she showed that he was really confident. And what Lincoln Riley said about him was like he's like a coach on the field. You could totally see that some of his reads, some of his throws. I think a guy like Miller Moss, I mean, he waited his turn after Caleb Williams came there, and he waited. Both these quarterbacks in this game, they waited their turn, and I saw talent all over the field that I was like I was just, man, I was really like.
I want to ask you about some talent.
Yeah.
Like I want to go to LSU for a second. What do you think about Harold Perkins? Because I mean, Harold was a guy his freshman year looked like he probably could have been like a top 20 pick. Pretty undersized. I think he's a guy that's gonna probably have to be a 3-4 outside linebacker for somebody as an edge rusher. He had 8 tackles.
Yep.
In the game. He had half a sack. I think this is a big year for Harold Perkins because he was a guy who had like very high first round hype his freshman year. Then things started to taper off a little bit production wise for him. He wasn't that same player the last couple years. This year, I think he's a guy who could really burst back onto the scene and raise his draft stock some more.
Yeah, I think Harold Perkins, I mean, honestly, like, I like him as a player. I think he has some talent. I think that there's like issues that he has that I think drafted. Like I think when he went to a meeting with like his, coaching staff, they were like, "Look, this is what you got to get better at. Maybe you're not in the right position. Maybe we put you at middle linebacker because that's where he was playing. Like, it's kind of like that thing. Like you go. I heard it before, but like you hear players say, "Oh, I went back to my coach and he said I wasn't ready for the pros." I mean, some don't listen, but some do. And I
Yeah.
think that if you're Harold Perkins, listening is probably the best bet because I think there are some talent. He's uber talented. There's no doubt about it. Like he's a very freakish athlete. But the issue with Harold Perkins, I think, is like he misses a lot of tackles sometimes. I mean, you go back last year, he missed a lot of tackles. So
Yeah.
him going at middle linebacker, I think that's going to be a better spot for him because I think he's kind of that tweener guy.
Yeah.
And I think that he's better at middle linebacker. I really do. And this first game showed it. I mean, it really did.
Yeah. I think it's that time of year where we go into week 0, week 0. We go into week 0, week 1 with a list of guys whose names we already know,
Right.
for the most part. And then other guys start to jump up, like Savion Jones,
Yep.
the edge rusher, senior. Didn't know much about him the last couple years. That dude's 6'6", 285. Massive, massive throwback type of defensive end. Had a big game against USC. I think that LSU defense in general had a big game.
Yep.
Not a big game. They had a pretty good game against that USC offensive line. The same offensive line that kind of let Caleb Williams down a year ago.
Same issue, man. They haven't fixed it, and I think that if USC is going to get to the next step, they got to fix it. Like I think the best USC teams. Like I remember, I went back and I watched the 2006 Rose Bowl where it was Vince Young versus USC, and that USC offensive line was effing awesome, man. Like there was pros all over the offensive line. I think that's what they miss at SC. Like I know Caleb Williams was running for his life last year. Forget the quarterback before him that was also running for his life. Like, I mean, at some point you got to invest in the offensive line because that's the only way you're going to win against these big time programs, and especially in the Big Ten. You got to have an offensive line.
Yeah, that's for sure. LSU got one for sure. Well, they at least have a left tackle in Will Campbell, who's probably going to be a top 10 pick.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think Will Campbell is like is already a top 5 pick? Because in my mind, I think he's a top 5 pick. No.
At the moment, yeah. I've done some mock drafts since mid to late June. To me, he's the number 1 tackle on the board. I've heard some YouTube scouts or whatnot say that he's a late first round pick. He's an early second because they don't like his arm length and this and that. They don't like his overall athleticism. When I look at him, I look at a guy who's a rock. Now, am I completely happy with his arm length? No. But every offensive tackle, every left tackle in the league doesn't have 38-inch arms.
That's
my thing
exactly.
Is, when I notice him, when you watch him on film, because I watched a lot of film on Will Campbell over the summer, when he locks in, guys don't move. I don't give a damn about arm length. He rarely loses guys when he gets back into his sets. So to me, that's the key thing right there. And if you look at the conference he plays in, that's why I'm really big on tackles who play in the SEC. You tend to see a lot of a wide variety of different edge rushers. 6'6" edge rushers. You see 6'2" edge rushers. Guys who are 6'3", 240. Guys who are 6'6", 260. And he handled everybody last year. So yeah, I'm really impressed with Will Campbell. Unless the bottom falls out for Campbell and he has a bad season the rest of the year, goes through some injuries or whatever, I see no reason why Will Campbell can't be the first tackle off the board.
Yeah, I was interested in what you were gonna say because like I look at Will Campbell and I go, man, like he kind of reminds me of like a Taylor Decker type, in my opinion. Like a Taylor Decker, another kind of comp.
I had Slater. I think he's got that drive and that physicality that Rashawn Slater had coming out of Northwestern.
Slater was another one. What's 6? Oh, Broderick Jones from Georgia.
Oh yeah, Broderick. Yeah, with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Broderick. Yeah, that's in Pittsburgh right now. Like there's a lot of guys I can comp him to where he's not like this physical specimen like Penei Sewell was, or name a guy like what's the kid that was from he went to Carolina. He was from NC State.
Oh, Ike Ekwanwu, who
Yeah,
looks like the
Kwanu.
worst tackle in football right now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like that was a guy that was supposed to be like the bee's knees, and he is literally knees.
They called this man knees. Well, you know what? Joe Thomas is another guy that didn't have all the wowing physical traits. Joe was steady. He was steady at Wisconsin, and we got to the league. Joe was steady his entire career.
Well, that's what me and you talk about all the time. Like me and you, especially around draft time, we talk about this all the time. Like people look for the prototypical guy. Like they look for a prototype of a guy. Whether it's a quarterback, whether it's a running back, whether it's a wide receiver or a tackle. You know they do with edge rushers too. But like it's like at some point like you have to put the prototypical guy like away and go, okay, this guy's pretty good. I think he could be good in the league at a certain spot. You know what I'm saying? This same prototype is the same thing that allowed Lamar Jackson to go to Baltimore. Like this same prototype is what allows like these good players to slip to like the second round.
Yeah, I do think if you look at the history of the left tackle position in the NFL with guys coming out of college, most of the big time Hall of Famer guys did have the traits though, like Orlando Pace, Jonathan Ogden, Walter Jones. A lot of those guys did have those traits. They were 6'5" and a half, 6'6". Pace was different though. Like Pace was like he was like my favorite, even though he went to Ohio State, of course. But Pace was like one of my favorite players. Especially when he chased down Champ Bailey in that game against the Redskins.
Man, it goes with what we say around draft time, man. Like these tackles that are out there, a lot of times, even at the cornerback position, we see cornerbacks go early, like Jeff Okudah, because he was a prototypical cornerback that was going to be good. And
went to Ohio State.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, this kid's going to be good. And then it's like, flashback, he really does suck. So
yeah, I think Jeff's confidence got shattered early. I think he went to the wrong regime.
Yep.
Also,
yep,
he suffered that injury early, and you and I both understand this. It doesn't matter how physically talented you are as a corner. If you don't have it together upstairs, it doesn't matter. And corners can get their confidence shattered quickly.
Well, me and you always talk about like when we talk about it at draft time, like we're like, okay, if this guy goes here, there's a chance that he's gonna bust out. You know what I'm saying? And I look at a guy like Jeff Okudah, went to the wrong situation. I feel like if he would have went to a right situation, like if he would have went to Dan Campbell's team, or he would have went to a guy like John Harbaugh or Andy Reid and Spagnuolo in Kansas City, or D'Amico Ryans in Houston, he'd be a way better player. But because he went to an oversized blob, that was the issue, you know?
Wait a minute now. Rex Ryan was a blob. He's my favorite blob though.
Well, I see I mean if you've been perusing the Twitter, Mr. Matt Patricia has been taking the Ozempic because he's lost a lot of weight. A lot of weight.
Oh, got him an LA Fitness membership, huh?
I don't know. The way
he strikes me more of a Planet Fitness type of guy, man.
I don't know. He strikes me more as like the Ozempic guy, like where like he just takes a shot and loses the weight.
I'm wearing this band around my gut.
That's the way it is. All right, we got to go to another one because this is funny. But you said they were in a football school, UCLA,
and and look at that against Hawaii. Seriously,
I watched this game and I want half of my life back. I literally do. Like that was the most brutal game I have ever watched in a long time. Like it was horrible.
What do you want me to say about it, man?
I just want you to feel bad for me because I watched it and I was like, man, this is bad football. So I turned the channel to Sacramento State, and they actually that was actually a good game. All right, let's go to Indiana
Yeah.
and Florida International. You know,
Well, I was gonna give a little bit of commentary on it. So Ethan Garbers, man, it seems like Garbers been in college for like 20 years, bro. 20 long years. Um, if I'm not mistaken, isn't that's the same Garbers that went to Cal, right? I think
I
he
think so.
transferred from Cal to yeah, boy.
Man,
The DJ Uyunglele of California. Like,
what's the kid that's at Oklahoma State? He's on like his 8th year. God,
oh,
Alan Bowman,
yeah,
because he was at Michigan for a while. So,
yeah.
but yeah,
I don't know.
this game was horrible, and I hope no one watched it. And if you're a UCLA fan, I mean, all you have to do is watch your coach talk at the Big Ten opener, Big Ten press conferences or whatever, and he's like, "Yeah, we're a school in LA," and it's like, bro, it's in your name. Like,
Yeah. We're from UCLA. In case you didn't know, that's California. No, you. I feel kind of bad for UCLA, man, because even if before they even got to the Big Ten, I think they're gonna get their asses handed to them in the Big Ten bad. Like there's some tough, rugged teams in this conference, man. And if you look at UCLA, okay, recruiting wise, you have to deal with fighting off USC every single season, recruiting
right.
wise. You got to deal with competing against, to a lesser extent, the Arizonas and the Arizona States. And then you got to deal with Alabama because California is a very large hotbed for football talent. So
Oh
now
yeah.
you got to deal with Alabama dipping in. You got to deal with Oklahoma dipping in. Now you're in the Big Ten. Now you got to deal with Michigan. Michigan recruits a lot of California kids too.
Yeah.
So now it's looking like if you're UCLA, man, how do you even manage? Do you think, first of all, how long, like this contract wise, how long is UCLA handcuffed to even be here?
I would say 6 or 7 years, but I mean, they're in here because they were going red in the AD department. Like that's why they came to the Big Ten because of the money.
Yeah.
I think basketball wise, they can compete. I think football wise, it's going to be tough. I really do. I think it's going to be tough for the football team because, like you said, I think you open Pandora's box when you allow Ohio State to recruit California now. We know we know Oregon was already in California. We know that Jonathan Smith has made a decision to go to California as well. All these teams going to California. Michigan goes to California. Like it's like the Texas factor. You know, when they allowed Nebraska, when Nebraska was in the Big 12, they were pretty good. That was because they're recruiting Texas talent, and they could say, okay, you're going to play Texas every year. And then those kids went to Nebraska, and it's like, all right, well, this is the same thing here. UCLA is not like this school where you go, okay, I think UCLA is going to be all right. It seemed like when Chip Kelly left, that was like the worst thing that happened to that team. It really was. Like, it just showed that they're like a second-rate program, and that's sad to say because they're such a unique brand.
Their name is weird.
They play in a historic stadium. Like it should sell itself, but
they're one of the weirdest teams to really get a read on in college football as far as Division I. Because like you look at UCLA brand wise, and you just feel like they should be better than what they are. But then, like I said, when you compare them to the fact that USC is a powerhouse, like even when USC was bad after John Robinson left, like when USC was bad for those few years, they were still a powerhouse that still recruited a lot of talent. It's not like I think UCLA would be better off. Well, there's no better off. Not like you can switch states. We're no longer UCLA in California. We're UCLA in Vermont.
right.
But it's like, all right, so let's take North Carolina, for example. North Carolina's recruiting in Virginia. They got to deal with Virginia, who's not really that big of a deal, college football wise. Virginia Tech's been struggling for a while. So if you look at their situation, North Carolina, even though North Carolina is still a basketball school, they still recruit better talent than those other schools. Virginia Tech's just been downhill for a while anyway. And they're still like a 3-star program.
Well,
says college football. 25.
Well, North Carolina can also recruit Georgia and Tennessee and those states. And South Carolina is a pretty good state for football talent as well. So
Yep.
It just goes to show you, man. Like if you're gonna have to get the right guy in UCLA to turn this thing around. I don't think this current coach is gonna turn it around. I feel like he's a good guy, but I don't have any faith in the guy because I think it's gonna be a unique situation where you get a guy that's gonna come to UCLA and it has to be a name. Like you have to get a name, someone that's gonna be like, I'm gonna get your kid to the
Yeah.
NFL. That's how
Cachet.
it's gonna take. Like
Cachet.
if you had like a guy like, let's just take Dion for example, okay? I don't like what he's done in Colorado. I think it's kind of a fraudulent team, but he's a name. He gets people in there, and I don't care that he's trashing recruits on Twitter, but
I think even though Jim's in with the Chargers now, Jim Harbaugh probably would have did a pretty good job there. You're right. They need somebody with a big enough name that can go there and recruit because right now, getting somebody who coached at Minnesota or Georgia Tech or somewhere to go there is too difficult. It's an arms race now.
Getting an assistant coach is not going to help. You
No.
know, it's like Michigan State. Okay, like let's take Michigan State for example. Michigan State's a good football program. It's always been a good football program they've had their foibles, but it's a top 25 school in revenue and everything like that. But like getting a guy like Jonathan Smith was like a once in a you don't usually see a head coach leave for another head coaching position, but because you're in the Big Ten, you kind of have a little bit more prestige. So if you went and out, if UCLA went out and they got the James Madison coach, or they got the guy from Appalachian State or something like that, maybe that could raise something. But for you to get to the next step and totally be like ahead of USC in your own backyard, you got to get a big name head coach. That's the way it's got to go. You got to spend the money.
It's gonna be rough. It's rough for them, man. Because if I'm a big time recruit in California or anywhere, why would I want to go to UCLA? The only way I would want to go to UCLA is if I was a California kid that maybe wanted to stay home closer to family or whatever. But why would I want to go to UCLA? Just being honest, unless it's playing time. Now they can sell playing time.
It's funny you mention it. It's funny you mention it because Troy Aikman, he's been a guy who's been like on the UCLA, like we need to get a stadium on campus because they don't have a stadium on campus. That's another thing.
Yeah.
But also, it's like they don't have much fanfare because a lot of them don't go to the game. So it's like it's a tough situation. And like I said, it's California. Like there's a lot of things to do in California in September. And if you're gonna be a good program, you got to get a guy with a name. Like let's say for instance, like the Rams have a crappy year, and you get Sean McVay, game changer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You get an NFL coach, but NFL coaches aren't leaving for college right now, and you're UCLA, so that's the issue right there.
Yeah, unless you're a coordinator. Or go after Dan Campbell.
Well, Texas A&M tried that, and he said, "Nah, I'm good, bro."
No, trust me, they're gonna come knocking again. The more success he has, more teams are gonna come knocking. That doesn't mean he have to leave, but rarely do you see successful NFL coaches leave a successful situation to go coach kids.
Well, I remember what you remember what Mike Tomlin said when the SC came with him. What came with the blank check? He's like, you could take that blank check and shove it up your ass, like that. He's like,
what do you say? Something about, I don't want kids. Like,
exactly what he said.
Like you could take that in a variety of different ways too.
You can take that in a variety of different ways. I think that means he's not interested.
Yeah.
All right, on in Indiana and Florida International. I think this is an interesting.
Jesus.
Listen, this was not a good game. But their quarterback Rourke, his brother plays in the CFL, whatever. He looked pretty decent. They're in the first year of a head coach. Obviously, winning 31-7 is against Florida International is nothing to write home about, but it is what it is. So Indiana looked pretty decent. I think that Rourke looked pretty good, and I think that they got some defensive talent still. A guy like Jalen Walker, the linebacker, I think he's going to be a really good player. A guy like Aiden Fisher, who's another linebacker. I think they're loaded at linebacker. I think some of those linebackers will be in the league. Kind of like Cam Jones, whatever. Who's with the Bills, but I think he's with the Bills. But again, it's the Well,
It's
Micah
too tough.
McFadden went to Indiana too, so and he's with the
Yeah.
Giants. So they
But
got some good linebackers. So
yeah, I think Indiana's in a. They've been here longer, of course, in the Big Ten, but they're in a situation similar to UCLA. Like you're a historical basketball school. Nobody's ever really taken your football program seriously. I can't even think back to the highest rated. Who was like the highest drafted Indiana player, football wise,
God,
in like recent memory?
you have
And
to go
there's a
with
lot of talent in the state of Indiana.
you would have to go with Antoine Randall. I don't know. I don't know.
I was a kid at
That's what I'm saying.
that time.
He's a coach with the Lions right now. Like that's what it is. Like
Yeah, I watched his entire career. You telling me they haven't? Damn, now I think about it, they haven't had a first round pick since. Well, he wasn't even a first round pick.
that's what I'm saying. I don't know who the first. I gotta look it up, but I don't know. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you. And you know what? You bring up a good point about this. This is another basketball school that football is kind of like the secondary sport. It feels like that with all of Indiana. Like I think Indiana is another state that deals with this whole look who's next to you, look who's on top of you. You got Michigan, Michigan State, you got Ohio State, and Cincinnati. Even Cincinnati recruits pretty damn good with the Bearcats. I mean, they recruit pretty good, and it's like, and then you got Illinois, who under Bielema, which we'll talk about them. They look Altmaier looks really good, but you look at those guys and you're like, okay, they could be something.
But they got a pro coach over there. I mean, I don't think you would. Yeah, they did get Lovie Smith over there, so they've had a nice size box of talent drafted the last 3 years.
Kirby Joseph, Jair Brown, and
yeah,
Sidney Jones, and they've had a lot of what's the cornerback that they
Witherspoon.
Yeah, no,
Witherspoon.
There was another one. Oh man, god damn it! I got it.
But no, they've had quite a decent amount of players though get selected. And that's a basketball school. Chicago is a basketball hotbed state, and Illinois managed to begin keeping some of their talent in state. Actually, they've started recruiting pretty well outside of Illinois. Because remember, Witherspoon was a Florida kid, and they managed to get him to come all the way up to Chicago.
Well, you remember when Illinois was good with Juice Williams and everything?
Yeah,
they recruited that DMV area of Maryland pretty heavily, and that's what made them good. But obviously, they were also giving bags away. But it's NIL season, so you can give bags away anyway, so it don't matter.
Maybe some of these teams we're talking about need to just disband in another 4, 5, 6 years and just start their own conference. Indiana, UCLA, they probably need their own conference because Indiana will never be anything in this conference, especially now.
Even in football, like I'd just be like, all right, we want to remain in basketball because Big Ten basketball is, I think, what they pride themselves on.
Yeah.
But I think Indiana. Another team we're going to talk about right now is Purdue. I mean, they played Indiana State, which you can't really take nothing from it, but Hudson Card looked pretty damn good. He was really good, actually. He was 24 for 25, 273 yards, 4 touchdowns. Against Indiana State, you should do that, but it is what it is. This is another basketball school, and they're in the second year of a coach, so it's going to be interesting in West Lafayette what they do there. But I think the big one of the weekend was Penn State and West Virginia. And I don't know about you, but Abdul Carter, that Penn State defense is awesome. Drew Aller looked really, really good. Some of those throws he made, I was impressed by.
Yeah.
Just interested to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I think this is a huge season with Drew Aller. When Drew came out of high school as a 5-star recruit, he had number 1 pick, first round pick written all over him. You look at the size, you look at the arm strength, you look at his ability to push the ball downfield. Things went bad last season. He looked really bad last season in stretches. I expect him. He's more experienced now. They've got more talent around him offensively now. I expect him to be a lot better. He's a wild card, I think, moving forward in next year's draft too. Abdul Carter. First round pick. I agree.
I agree.
I think he's better if you look at Chop Robinson from a year ago. A lot of people were high on Chop Robinson. I think he's better. He's a better overall player than Chop Robinson. They're around the same kind of size, body type, or whatever. I think he's got longer arms than Chop Robinson, but yeah, Abdul's legit. I've been up on Abdul the last couple years, waiting on him to come out, and he's on his way for sure.
One of the players that I was impressed by, and he had 3 tackles total tackles by himself. He had 6 assisted tackles. He had 1 forced fumble, and that was Jalen Reed. And I thought Jalen Reed, I think he has a future in the league too. I looked at him and I was like, man, he is, as a safety, he is a really good safety. And I think that a guy like that, especially playing at Penn State, I think the way that he plays, I think he definitely meshes in with the way that the NFL is going with. He could play in the slot, he could play everywhere, he play in the box, like something. Penn State looks like a good team. I'm just wondering when James Franklin's gonna f it all up, because that's what he usually does.
Maybe this team is good enough that he can't. You mentioned a DB for Penn State. I'm gonna mention Kevin Winston Jr. He's another guy who's expected to be a first round pick.
Yeah.
He had 12 tackles the other day. Good size for safety. Really good size for safety. Pretty good range. He can play in the box. Pretty short tackler. This is actually going to be a pretty solid safety class coming up this year. You're looking at Malachi Starks of Georgia, who's got cornerback skills at the safety position. Matter of fact, I think Malachi went to Georgia as a corner, and then they moved him to safety after his first year. I don't think Malachi Starks going to the top 10 is that far fetched.
No,
at all. He's that damn good of a player, and I think Kevin Winston, safety wise, is the same kind of guy.
I think Jalen Reed is another guy. Like, I think if you're looking for a guy who could play like all over the field, I think this is a guy that you would kind of go after. And I don't know. I think you're right. Penn State does have a good team and they're foolproof. I think this new offensive coordinator has unlocked that offense, because last year they were absolutely dreadful. And I think that Drew Aller really needed a guy who could unlock his talent, because you could see in moments last year that he was one of those guys that if you watch him throw the ball, it was pretty good. But this year he looked very, very precise with his throws. There was a throw to the out route around the 50-yard line that it was like a 20-yard throw, and he made a perfect throw that just the DB was all over the wide receiver, and he couldn't even get it. That's how great of a throw it was. And Joel Klatt mentioned something on the broadcast about how good of a throw it was, and I watched it again, and I was like, man, that's such a precise throw to the out route, to the sideline. You usually don't see that in college football. Usually a college football guy will have it either short or outside, and this was right on the wide receiver. The wide receiver caught it, like, right at the sideline. So it was such a great throw that, like, even if he didn't catch it, it wasn't getting intercepted. So,
yeah. I mean, for me, the main thing I want to see from Drew Aller this season, because I don't know what happened last year. I don't know if it was Franklin, the offense. It just seemed like they were asking him to do too much kill shot play, too much hero ball. I want to see him orchestrate the offense a lot better. I want to see some 12-play drives, some 13-play drives, 14-play drives. We know you have a big arm. Yeah. We know you can push the ball downfield. I don't really give a damn about that right now. If he's going to play at the next level, he has to, and this goes to the NFL and how much we talk about Jared Goff. Everybody ain't Josh Allen, arm talent-wise.
No.
Most quarterbacks coming out of high school, coming out of college, they're closer to Jared Goff than they're closer to Josh Allen.
Yep.
You need to be able to extend drives, pick up 3rd and 10s.
Be smart with the ball.
Yeah, exactly. Last season, he looked like a fish out of water compared to what he was that season before. But like I said, I think it's going to be a very interesting season for Drew Aller, and he could be that wild card moving forward the next April.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the biggest issue with these quarterbacks coming out of college now is, like, they're so pressed to make the big play that when they come in the NFL and they try to make that big play, that's why I kind of think that, I don't know about you, but I think Jaden Daniels is going to be better than Caleb Williams in his rookie year, which is my opinion, because I see Jaden Daniels do some of the things that I like in a quarterback. And I think guys like Drake May and Caleb Williams, it's going to take some time for them to learn. Like, you can't make that throw that you made in college. Like, that throw you made against, Vanderbilt or that play you made against Washington State, that's not going to fly in the NFL. Every team you're going to play is going to be tough. So, like a guy like Drew Eller, it just plays smart football. Like that's the main thing. Like I can't emphasize it enough, and we talk about it all the time. Well, and a lot of these quarterbacks they come in the NFL, and this is what they do. They just think it's hero ball. And you're right. Not every player is like Josh Allen. Not every player is Mahomes or Burrow. Like you're more Jared Goff, you're more Jalen Hurts than anyone. So just stick to it. That's the way it goes.
Definitely.
A guy that I think is really going to be close to Mahomes.
Dylan. DR.
He walks the same way, shoulder pads the same way, looks like Patrick Mahomes, and his throw is listen, I knew he was going to be good because I watched one of his high school games, and it was on ESPN, I think last year. I go, man, this kid is going to be really, really good. And I talked to someone who was at Elite 11. They were at the Elite 11 thing, whatever. And they're like, man, this kid is like, he's legit. And this guy has been right about a lot of quarterbacks. And just think about his stats: 19 for 27, 236 yards. His quarterback rating was 166, 2 touchdowns. Obviously, this week he's going to be playing Colorado, but I mean, there's a lot to be desired by Dylan Raiola.
Yeah, you and I talked about him in the pre-show. He just looks different. Every few years you get one of those quarterbacks. So they're all 5 stars. Most of these guys have 5 stars next to their name coming out of high school, 4 stars or whatever. He looked the part. It's very rare that you see a true freshman step out there, have command of the offense the way he had command of the offense, take completions the way he took completions. And what I mean by taking completions is when there's nobody open, when the secondary, when the coverage dictates where you're supposed to go with the football and there's nobody actually scripted open, can you still take completions? And you see guys like Patrick Mahomes do this. You see guys like Justin Herbert do this. Josh Allen, the guys who have the arm talent and the accuracy to still make those throws. He made throws that had me thinking like, wait a minute, this dude was in high school last year? Like you don't see that often, man. And I think this may be jumping the gun to some people, but to me, he looks like the number 1 overall pick in a couple years. Well, he looks like it.
I can say that, there's some quarterbacks that come into college football and you're like, right away, you're like, okay, this guy, I know he's a freshman, but he doesn't play like a freshman. And
right.
You can understand why, because Dylan Raiola comes from a pro family. Like his dad was in the NFL for many, many years with the Lions. And, just having that luxury of having a guy like Dylan Raiola. I mean, your dad being Dominic Raiola, and the players that he knows and the players that he can get you in contact with, like you're already getting prepped to be a good player.
And then Stafford being his godfather, and he's been insulated and he's been groomed for this. That's why I think he's a guy who we saw it when Andrew Luck. He was a guy that was groomed for that from day one. His dad played in the league. Andrew Luck was around pros, coaches, and players since he was like 8, 9, 10 years old. Yeah, some guys are good for this, and I think he's one of those guys that's built for this.
Yeah, I think that Dylan Raiola he's a unique player. I don't think you see many of these guys coming to college football like this. I mean, I know we always get those number 1 overall recruits that were like, oh, this guy's gonna be great. Turns out it's like
Arch Manning.
Yeah, well, I think Arch Manning is gonna be pretty good, but I think he needed to sit because he played at low-level high school football. I feel like if he came into Texas and he played, he would get his ass kicked. And I think that his, uncles, Peyton and Eli, were like, go to a place where you could sit for just a couple years and get stronger. I think that's what they literally told him, because that family is not going to go to somewhere and sit if they know that guy is ready to play. Like, that's the way it goes. But I think Texas was the right place for him, even though
Quinn Ewers.
It's got to be nice to be Texas, man. You go from Quinn Ewers to Arch Manning, like you're really not missing a step, I think. Like he came in that game against I forget who Texas was playing, and he did a pretty damn good job. So that was very
Definitely.
interesting. All right, next, let's go to next. We got Ohio State. They beat Akron 52-6. There's nothing you can know about this game because I think Ohio State's going to be really, really good. There was a slide I made, but it didn't, for some reason, it didn't show up on my thing. But Ohio State has like 5 or 6 top 100 players for the NFL draft. I mean, I know me and you talk about the NFL draft all the time, but like at the same time, like it's incredible that Ohio State just every year they reload, but they have Ryan Day has to beat Michigan this year, and I think the emphasis is they got to go to the playoff and they got to do some damage because you don't get a good team like this. And the running backs that he has, Junkins and Henderson, and then the wide receivers, like
Jeremiah Smith. And before I get into Jeremiah Smith, you talking about Jack Sawyer on defense, the defensive end, Tyreek Williams, the defensive tackle, who'd probably be a high 2nd round pick. Sawyer, if Sawyer had came out last year, probably would have been a late 1st, early 2nd round pick. He came back to boost his draft stock. Jeremiah Smith, man, like the last time I saw him earlier this year, he was skinny as hell.
Yeah,
that dude hit the weight room over the summer. He's another guy though. Like they keep wide receivers in the pipeline. That's just how it is over there at Ohio State. He is another guy that looks like the Julio Joneses, the AJ Greens. Like he looks like a guy that fits into that box right there. He dropped that first pass. After that first drop, he just turned into Super Jeremiah. But yeah, Ohio State's loaded again. Do I believe in Will Howard? Not so much. I watched 4 years of Will Howard at Kansas State, and I watched him lose his job to 3 different guys, including not Adrian Martinez, the Martinez that played for us, matter of fact, last year on the practice squad.
Yeah.
He lost his starting job repeatedly. So, like, do I believe Will Howard can lead that team in this Big Ten?
No. But here's the thing. I think it's foolproof because
the offense.
You can hand the ball off to Junkins or Henderson, and you're going to have a good run game. You got a freshman phenom in Jeremiah Smith. I don't care what anybody says. I will take the bait on this if I'm wrong, but Jeremiah Smith is another one of those wide receivers that Ohio State really shells out, and it's like it seemed like he was a crossover between Olave and Jameson Williams or Garrett Wilson, like one of those 3, like just to kind of the way he played the game,
just bigger than all of them.
Right, that's the thing. He's way bigger. He's
6'3",
215. Like he's a huge guy, but just the way I always tell people, the reason Ohio State has the best wide receivers is because how they're so good at route running. Like that is a major thing that they're good at. Like every one of these guys that comes in the league, whether it's Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson or Michael Thomas, I mean, until he lost his mind, but you get what I'm saying. Like Ohio State, they really turn out these wide receivers, and if I'm a wide receiver, like I'm either going to Ohio State or I'm going to LSU. Like that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, I mean it's the coaching over there too, and the receiver coach, I forgot his name, but
Brian Hartline.
Yeah, Brian Hartline, former Ohio State Buckeye. He's done a damn good job with them. They have a type too. You ever notice you don't really, outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Jink, well, Michael Jenkins played both sides of the ball too, but outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., Jeremiah Smith, Michael Thomas, you didn't see too many big Ohio State receivers. Most of those guys, even going back to Santonio Holmes and Ted Ginn Jr., they seem to like those 5'11", the 6'1" guys, those shiftier guys, more explosive. They haven't had too many really big wide receivers like that. Jeremiah Smith out of Florida, not University of Florida, but he was from the state of Florida. They went down there and got him to go to Ohio State. But yeah, he looks special. He looks like another one of those guys, like I said, the Julio Joneses, the AJ Greens, one of those guys who looks like he could be a first round pick as a freshman.
Yep.
And that's what everybody said about those guys. Like even Roy Williams, to a lesser extent, Texas Roy Williams. When Roy Williams was at Texas as a freshman, he looked like he could play in the NFL.
Yep. And he did a good job in NFL until his health went down the drain. So
Well, work
really,
ethic too.
yeah. Well, when he
Roy
got
didn't. Roy was a guy that didn't have to work that hard. And
when he got huge like Matt Patricia, we knew that there was issues. You know what I'm saying? Like those Dallas years, man.
yeah, I mean, Roy was a hell of a player. I was a big Roy Williams fan coming out, and we drafted him. I'm telling everybody, listen, we drafted another wide receiver after Charles Rogers. I don't care. You need
Yeah.
to see this Roy Williams guy. This guy is a stud, and Roy had every ounce of talent out there. But
I took the bait on Mike Williams too at USC. I thought he was going to be pretty good.
yeah, I
I
mean, I
don't know
just
when he's going to
heard
work out.
for Roy, I just heard too many stories from people at Texas about how he half practiced, how Roy showed up at the end of practice, caught 100 footballs, then went home, and it's like, okay, you can have all the God-given talent in the world, but if you don't have the work ethic, look at Calvin. Calvin had as much talent as or more as anybody, but he matched that talent with the work ethic too. And
Yep.
when you get to the NFL, everybody's got talent. And I think that was the big thing that separated Roy Williams from Larry Fitzgerald. Remember when they came out, there was a legit debate who was better between Larry Fitzgerald and Roy Williams. And Fitzgerald was the guy, he was the hard worker. He caught the ball better. He was the pros pro. He was another guy that had a dad that played that was around the league too, though.
Well, that's why I think if you talk about work ethic and we when you get into the draft process, like when we do this podcast in like March and April, we're talking about the draft, like players in a draft. Like I think that a guy like, for instance, like you know, if Garrett Wilson would have came out, like I seen him being a great work ethic guy. Chris Olave, same thing. Like you see these guys' work ethic, and you're like, okay, that I could take a chance on that guy, and a guy that doesn't have that work ethic, you're gonna be like, all right, I'm out. Like, yeah, I know he's talented, but like at some point, like talent only gets you so far, and you're gonna have to push yourself to get over the mountaintop. And I think J.J. Watt showed that with being a defensive end. I think Larry Fitzgerald showed that. Calvin Johnson showed that. You know, all these great players, they showed the work ethic was there. Like that's the way it was. And guys like Martavis Bryant, who had all the talent in the world, they could never put
Yeah.
it together because they were just kind of like they didn't work as hard, and that's the main issue. So
I think every now and then you see there's some of the guys that you don't see coming. Like I don't think anybody really saw Terry McLaurin coming. Like he was
no,
decent at Ohio State. I don't think anybody saw him becoming what he became. Well, yeah,
the work ethic is what got him there, man. Like scary
Paris
Terry.
Campbell.
Yep,
Paris Campbell's work
Campbell.
ethic has kept him in the league.
That's what I'm saying. It's like Nico Collins, right? I think everyone thought Nico Collins was a good player, but the thing that separates him is his work ethic. The
Yeah,
guy just doesn't quit, and he doesn't quit on plays, and that's what makes him great. And if you're a Michigan fan, like you're probably going, "Damn, we had Nico Collins, MDPJ at one time, and we didn't have a quarterback."
Tariq Black.
Tariq Black, who did good at Texas, but it'll be interesting, man. Like I just think that this Ohio State team is going to be really good. But let's move on to Maryland because I mean, there's nothing really to talk about. UConn's a pretty doormat program, and they're gonna. I think Maryland's gonna get tested this week with Michigan State. I think I think both those teams are on fraud alert. Okay, because if Michigan State loses to Maryland, fraud. Maryland loses to Michigan State, fraud. Loxley he's been there for a while. He had baby Tua, and I mean he lost his best linebacker to Michigan. He lost his
Yeah.
best tight end to Cal. Like he lost his best players. So I mean, it just comes to a point like Roman Hemby. I love it, Roman Hemby as a running back, but at the same time, like time's ticking, man. You've been there for a while now, and you can't get nothing together.
I mean Maryland is another basketball school. Even coming from where they came from, and it's like they've had talent. They're more so a basketball / track school. One thing's for sure: if you get skill position players from Maryland, cornerbacks, wide receivers, those guys can run. They had 3 guys run sub 4.2. They got drafted over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Jacorian Bennett and who's
Raheem-
actually with the Raiders right now.
Raheem Jarrett, yep. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean Maryland has had some decent draft prospects coming out. I mean Boomer Esiason and
The guy the
Stephon
Giants drafted the corner last year.
Deontay Banks.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stephon Diggs was there too. I mean, it goes to show you, man. Like these guys,
DJ
like,
Moore.
yep, DJ Moore. Like they have cranked out talent, but Loxley, I feel like he's been there so long. I feel like the talent level that it's kind of like UCLA, like where you have all that talent around you in the DMV, and you're not doing anything with it. Like the DC area is really heavily like you could recruit the DC area and win some.
Who wants to go there though?
I mean, Maryland's a pretty decent school, but you're right. I mean, if you're having the choice of do I go to
Washington?
Do I go to Maryland or do I go to Ohio State or do I go to Maryland or do I go to Michigan or Michigan State, Illinois? Like that's what you deal with when you're at Maryland. Well, we go to the bottom of the Big Ten.
The Smart School.
I love their stadium. I think it's really cool, but yeah, Northwestern is it's gonna take some time, man.
Listen, man, they should go when they reboot the Pac-12. They should go to them in Stanford. All the smart schools: Stanford, Vanderbilt, Northwestern,
Yep,
Duke. They should all just start their own division, their own college, not own college, but their own conference.
Well, it's like the Cardell Jones. You say I don't go there to play school. Well, these guys definitely go there to play school.
Yeah,
you don't go to Northwestern and be like, yeah, I'm not playing there, bro. Like, whatever. Like, but
they had their one bright and shining moment. I don't know if you were old enough to remember when they went to the all the way, against Keyshawn Johnson and USC.
Yeah, and they had Pat Fitzgerald as their linebacker.
Steve Schnur, Dwayne Bates, all those dudes.
I mean, they've had some good runs with Pat Fitzgerald, but I feel like now it's kind of like, I mean, it's tough to recruit at Northwestern, man. Like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Like, you have to recruit like kids that are, let's just say, it's smart, and then they have to get into school.
Dirtbags.
Right, you have to
start bending the academic rules, except 2.5s now. I'm just like, honestly, like, what do you expect from Northwestern in a conference that already had Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin? Now you add USC and like Oregon. Like, what do you, if you're Northwestern, you're the AD at Northwestern, what do I really expect out of my football program?
I mean, to be good once in a while, like I think Wisconsin is a prime example. That's another school that you have to be really smart to get into, and your grades matter at Wisconsin. But I look at a school like Wisconsin, like you have to find a coach that plays a certain way. That's what they do. They don't care. They run it down your throat, or they develop offensive linemen that are, they get from Iowa or Minnesota or whatever, and that's what they do. But you basically have to develop kids, and then hopefully you have a good year every 3 or 4 years. Like that's what you're hoping.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
I mean, it's the same thing Vanderbilt goes through. Like, imagine being a Vanderbilt fan. Like, you go to Vanderbilt, you're obviously a smart person, obviously, but like, Vanderbilt's baseball program is really good.
Yeah.
But their football program is dead before it walks, because they play in the SEC, and there is no way in hell they're beating Tennessee. There's no way in hell they're beating Florida. There's no way. Well, they might be Florida next year.
Well, that's the same thing with Cal, University of California. Like, you have to be smart to get in Cal.
But it's surprising because Cal has turned out some talent, man. Like Jared Goff, Aaron Rodgers,
Deshaun Jackson,
Marshawn Lynch. Like, they've actually had pros come through there. But like it's like Stanford, like Christian McCaffrey, Andrew Luck,
Richard Sherman. Well, Sherman was also very smart though. So like you need to be smart to get into those schools. But Stanford's put people in the NFL. So Northwestern needs to figure out, okay, we're just as smart as these other schools, but why can't we put guys in the NFL? Now, they put offensive linemen. I will say that. They put some offensive linemen in the NFL, but
yeah, Slater and everything, yeah.
Yeah, Brandon Joseph, he started there before he transferred to Notre Dame. So they've had Newsome. Greg Newsome.
Yeah, and Brandon Joseph was there too.
Yeah.
So that just goes to tell you right there, but we'll move on to Michigan. I know this is a big one that a lot of people want to talk about.
Stallions.
Helps when you, it helps when you don't know the plays. Anyways, uh, Michigan. I thought this was going to be a year that they came into this, and I don't know about you, but I feel like Michigan's kind of like in this like weird gray area of their program because when you think about Michigan, when you think about Sharon Moore, just think about it like this: Sharon Moore has a contract extension, but it can't be signed until the NCAA investigation is over. So, do your own homework of what that means. I 1+1 = 2, so that's what it is. But
Yeah.
you look at this quarterback situation, man, and first of all, I will never listen to these Michigan bloggers again because they was telling me that Alex Orji was going to be the truth. I've never seen a worse pass than skipping it. I mean, I've seen third basemen throw better passes than that to first base, and that's a long ways away. Davis Warren's a walk-on. They're kind of in this limbo. Donovan Edwards, who was one of the guys that I think everyone expected good things from.
I've always felt Donovan was overrated, man.
He hasn't done nothing. Like, I mean, okay,
Yeah.
take away the Ohio State game, take away the playoff game where he does those breakaway runs. What does he do? Like, what is Donovan Edwards? Because when I look at Donovan Edwards, I look at him like Javid Best, Reggie Bush. If he does get to the NFL, that's what he's going to be. That's literally what he's going to be.
A lesser version of those guys.
Maybe an Antonio Gibson, like, with New England. But, like, that's what I look at Donovan Edwards as. Like, I don't see him as an every down back. I don't see him as, like, that bell cow back. When you got Cleo Mullins outgaining you and yards after contact was better grade on Pro Football Focus if you like that. Like, just look at it. Like, they not good. And their wide receivers, there's nothing to shake a stick at. Like, honestly, if you didn't have a defense that had 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 top, first round picks, second round picks, what would this team actually be? That's the problem. And they go play Texas this week, and I don't know what to expect with that, man, because
I mean, can Michigan answer the bell? Because I don't think, even though it was a 30-10 win over Fresno, it didn't feel 30-10 impressive at all.
No,
and it's like that effort, that type of game plan against Texas, you're gonna get murdered. Just being 100% honest about it. And and just to go back to Donovan Edwards, like I said, I've always felt he was more sizzle than steak. Yeah. And I've always felt like the program hyped him up so much. And I'm not saying that I'm a Michigan State fan, I'm a Michigan fan. I just try to be as honest as possible about these schools. I feel like the fan base overall will hype up a lot of those Michigan players, overhype them. And to me, Donovan Edwards has always been like, okay, we saw you get the big runs when the big holes opened up with that great offensive line you had the last 2 years or whatever. But outside of that, what are you really?
How do you manufacture runs? That's what I want.
Yeah. And it's like you don't look like the most physical guy that wants contact either. So it's like I don't really know what you are. Like when I heard people bring up Donovan Edwards over this offseason saying, oh, he's going to be a first-round pick. In what draft? In what draft is Donovan Edwards a first-round pick at running back?
I don't know why anyone would say he's a first-round pick. I think it's because he goes to Michigan, obviously. That's one of the reasons. Second reason is, like, if you look at him and you look at Quishon Junkins at Ohio State, or you look at Ali Gordon at Oklahoma State, you go, yeah, he's better than both of them. Absolutely not. And, the thing about Donovan Edwards, he was expected to be one of those guys. And the issue Michigan has now is, like, Blake Corum was their main bell cow for 2 years. And he was really, really good. Blake Corum was a hell of a back.
Yeah.
Great.
Vision
was awesome. Like, he could find he wasn't the biggest guy, but he's just smart. Like, he was smart the way that he ran the ball. And he had the vision to get it done. Donovan Edwards, I don't think he has that vision. And if you look at the team across the in East Lansing, Nate Carter is another guy. He has all the talent too, no vision. And you could see that with some of these guys. Like if you have a running back like Nate Carter, or you have a running back like Donovan Edwards, like they should be getting more yards than they're getting. And the fact that they're not, and they need big wide open holes. Like if you're an NFL scout, like me and you are previewing the NFL draft, right? What grade we giving Donovan Edwards? I think being nice.
Third.
I think third round would be being nice. Third, fourth round, because he's not going to be a guy that's going to come in and be like, maybe you can use him as a scat back, a receiving back kind of thing, like maybe like a Jerick McKinnon type. But that's not worth a second or a first round pick. Yeah. Like,
nah, if you look at the first, what is it? Bijan Robinson, is he him? Hell no.
Is he
Jahmyr Gibbs? No.
No.
Is he Quinshon Judkins talent wise? No.
Ollie Gordon?
No. It's like you gotta remember too. Prior to last season, Jim Harbaugh advised Blake Corum to go ahead and leave early because they wanted to showcase Donovan Edwards. Blake went back and still outshined Donovan Edwards.
And that's the thing that we're talking about. Like if Donovan Edwards wants to hit that next ceiling, like that next part of his game plan, like he wants to go to the next level, he's got to get smarter running the ball. He's got to get smarter with the vision. And I know that his offensive line didn't do him any favors, but at some point you got to manufacture your own runs. And I think that's what is setting him back. And I think that if Michigan don't have a run game and they don't have Donovan Edwards at his best, I don't know what you can expect out of this Michigan team, because quarterback play is not good. They play Oregon, they play USC, they play Ohio State. Like, I know they have them all at home, but I think these teams could travel. I think Oregon's going to run the ball. Obviously, we know Ohio State's going to run the ball. USC looks pretty good. Like, Texas is coming in. They got a good team. If you play the same way you played,
Texas is fast, man.
If you play the same way you played against Fresno State, it'll be a bloodbath. Plain and simple.
I want to piggyback off that and ask you a question because, all right, so aside from the game changing, the game sealing pick six Will Johnson had, Will had an up and down game. Now, I've heard some people discuss his 40 time, whether or not he's a low 4.4 guy. Is he a 4.5 guy? Maybe a 4.6 guy or whatnot. Did you have any worries about what you saw from Will Johnson? Because outside of Fresno State, you talking about some of them speed boys at Texas he got to go up against. You talking about Jeremiah Smith in Ohio State. Oregon, Tez Johnson over there? He could possibly be a first round pick, depending on how his season goes. Will's got to see a lot of talent this year.
Yeah. I think Will Johnson's going to be fine. I do. I think that there's enough. Like, what he did against Marvin Harrison Jr. was pretty good. I think going against guys like that helps him. I think every cornerback is going to have a bad game. But this game against Texas is going to be a game that these scouts are going to circle. Like, they're going to circle that shit. And I think that if you are a guy like Mason Graham, Will Johnson, Jay-Sean Barnum, this is where you earn your first round grade. Like, this is where you earn your
Kenneth
first
Grant.
round. Yeah, Kenneth Grant. Like, I don't think Kenneth Grant's going to be a first round pick, but could you play yourself into the second round? Absolutely. So yeah. I think that if this is a big game for that defense, and if Donovan Edwards has any inclination to being like a day 2 pick, this is a game. Like, some team will be dumb enough to be like, this is our like Jerry Jones would be the dumb one. He'd be like, oh, this is a great back. We got a great back here. He's gonna do a good job at play Dallas Cowboy football. Like, that's
whatever exactly that is. He's gonna play 1990s football.
Well, the Dallas Cowboys are another. Anyways.
I don't know. Loveland is probably the only guy on offense that'll be a first round pick.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to hurt him, though, man. Like, the quarterback play is going to hurt his production. But one thing about being a tight end we've seen in past drafts, if they like your size and skill set, they don't give a damn about who your quarterback was in college.
I'm going to put in the Iowa factor rule, okay? Like, this is what it does, okay? Iowa usually doesn't have quarterbacks that can get their tight ends the ball. And you got guys like Sam Laporta and George Kittle who have came out of Iowa, and they know they didn't put up the gaudy stats, and no, they didn't look great at all times, but like you knew that they had talent. I think Colston Loveland's the same thing. Like if you see if the quarterback play doesn't get better for Michigan, and Loveland has struggles, that's what you're gonna look at right there. You're gonna be like, oh boy, that's what's gonna set them apart.
Oh yeah, definitely. Colston will get the benefit of the doubt because scouts will look at it and NFL GMs will say, well, you know what, we had a first round grade on this kid heading into the season, but his quarterback position didn't help him at all. Because even Orgy was a guy who we were seeing YouTube highlights of Alex Orgy 2 years ago about how great of an athlete he was, and he was going to hit the ground running. And now he looks like a guy that's just a fish out of water playing quarterback.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of Alex Orgy. I didn't think he was going to be a good quarterback. Just the way he threw the ball, and I obviously everyone can get better, but like seeing that first game and some of the passes he made, oh boy. Let's get on to Michigan State, and then we'll finish out this. Michigan State 16-10. Aiden Childs looked erratic at times. They got a big game against Maryland to kind of prove themselves. What's your thoughts?
As you mentioned, it was kind of disappointing to see that type of effort from that program. I understand brand new head coach, brand new system, brand new quarterback in Aiden Childs, who was a 4-star player coming out of college. He was over there in Oregon State, backed up good old DJ for that matter. It's hard to really put a finger on that performance because it got you a win, but it felt like a loss.
Yeah.
It really did. And then you look at the competition that it came against. It's like, I understand. I didn't expect Michigan State to be a 10-win team or anything like that.
No.
I expected better in week 1 against this competition than what I got.
Well,
now,
the most my bad for cutting you off, but
No,
the most disappointing thing about that game was the receivers. Like I felt like the receivers, like Montorie Foster, who's a senior, Alante Brown, who's a senior, they didn't help Aiden Childs one bit. And I just felt like Aiden Childs, as erratic as he was, I felt like if he had a senior wide receiver that helped him get a little bit in the groove, I think that would have helped out. But they didn't. And, this is another case of the running back that people presume is the number one running back got outshined by the second string running back, K'Ron Adams. Like, Nate Carter struggled, and I don't know why. And again, it comes back to not having the vision. You know what I'm saying? So very disappointing for Michigan State. That was disappointing for me. I didn't think they'd be that bad.
What about Nick Marsh? I mean, it's real early.
I need more Nick Marsh, and I need more Isaiah Johnson. That's what I need, because I thought that those two were the best wide receivers on the field, and I felt like Jonathan Smith went with too many senior laden receivers. He didn't give these guys enough time in the game, and I felt like they could have really helped out Childs. I thought Isaiah Johnson is another guy that I really like, and I like Nick Marsh. And I think that with Alante Brown going down, this gives a way to get Nick Marsh in the game. And don't be stupid. Give your number one guy that's your number one guy. Like, let's be honest right now. None of these guys that are seniors on that roster, they're probably not going to the NFL. Besides your tight end, Jack Velling, I think he could be an NFL tight end. But besides that, like, your future is Isaiah Johnson and Nick Marsh and Aiden Childs. And you gotta deal with the growing pains of those young mistakes, because in the future it's gonna pay off. It's gonna pay big dividends. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, I mean, I think something else that kind of like, even though he was just a wide receiver, something else that kind of slowed the development of that team was, and like Antonio Gates Jr., when he got there, not becoming what they expected him to become, at least name wise. A lot of it did have had to do with the fact that who his dad was.
Yeah, his dad was, yeah.
Yeah, but him not really developing all that well, and I do like Childs. I think Childs is a potential diamond right now, sitting in a pool full of shit.
He's got such a good arm, man. And if he just
mobile.
gains the accuracy, man, he's gonna be good. If he just gains that accuracy, he's going to be good. His arm talent is really impressive. That's my opinion. Like the balls that he was throwing, like they were lasers. Like they were just right on target. But like the problem is sometimes he overthrew, sometimes he was erratic with his throws, and that's what happens. So it is what it is. All right, just we'll run through quick through it. Rutgers
Did I
beat.
freeze?
I think you did.
Yeah, I did
Rutgers
freeze.
Rutgers beat Howard 44-7.
Rutgers against Howard.
Well, yeah,
Rutgers got some NFL players too.
Kyle Mungai is my favorite player in the Big Ten. I think that's another running back who's better than Donovan Edwards and Nate Carter. That guy is a beast. I think that any Michigan fan or Michigan State fan or any team not named Ohio State would love to have that guy on their roster for sure. Wisconsin, they struggled with Western 28-14. I don't know what the hell goes on with this. First of all, Tyler Van Dyke sucks. Let's put that number one.
Yeah, he does.
And I don't know why Wisconsin went away from their whole let's run the ball, let's be physical, blah 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 blah. They went to this whole garbage ass spread that's not it doesn't suit Wisconsin football. It's just not Wisconsin football. Like that's just the way it is. So,
well, let me ask you this. Because I'm not a Tyler Van Dyke fan either at all. Didn't buy any of the hype his first year at Miami when he was there. But you look at Wisconsin, how much of it is it the quarterbacks there, or is it actually the offense? Because Graham Mertz looked horrible when he was there. Now Graham Mertz is at Florida, and people are talking about Graham Mertz being a second-round pick. Not me. I'm not one of them. I'm just saying, like, but Mertz was awful. Mertz was awful at Wisconsin, and now he's at Florida looking a whole lot better.
I think what happens is simple. You know, obviously, their coach Fickle, he got Desmond Ridder in the league somehow. Like he got Desmond Ridder in the league, so I mean that says something right there. If you can get Desmond Ridder in the league, you're pretty talented. But my point with Wisconsin is like since Russell Wilson, they haven't had that quarterback that could really drive them home. I look at a guy like Russell Wilson, that was a long time ago. And you've had some talented quarterbacks, but they've never panned out. Like obviously Jack Cohn went to the NFL, but he's like a third string quarterback. You can't beat Wisconsin and be a spread team. That's my opinion. Like it's not the way you play football at Wisconsin. Like they got an academic standard that they abide to. Wisconsin has always been a physical offensive line school that you know, running back school, Ron Dane, Melvin Gordon, Jonathan Taylor, like those guys, like that's what Wisconsin football is. And they don't have that guy right now. They don't.
Yeah. First round offensive lineman, second round offensive lineman, defensive tackles, linebackers. Like when you think about Wisconsin, those are the types of positions that you think of. Even tight end.
Right.
Some tight ends.
Jake Ferguson was pretty good. Yeah, Ferguson was awesome. Then we go to another fraud, PJ Fleck. The guy, first of all, I don't respect you if you wear a suit on the sidelines. Like we're not in 1955. Like
Tom Landry.
You're not Tom Landry. You look like a broke ass barber. Anyways, they played North Carolina. They lost on a field goal. Thank God, because I had North Carolina 1.5. But Minnesota is just a team that I don't know what to expect out of them. PJ, you know, they have talent. Their best running back was out of the game, so maybe I give them a little bit of a thing. But Minnesota needs to have a good year with PJ Fleck, or else this is going to go haywire.
Yeah, I think I can't say the talent has ever really consistently been there across the board for Minnesota. They've been hit or miss with some guys they put in the NFL for that matter. Tyler Nubin was a hell of a safety last year. They had a few guys over the past couple years, but this Minnesota team just has the feel of the, not necessarily Illinois, because I think Illinois will probably be better than them, but they have the feel of the UCLAs and the Indianas, like they're just going to be overmatched. Now, could Minnesota just be good off the fact that they've been there so long and they know how to play all of the other Big Ten teams. But when
Maybe.
it comes to playing Oregon or USC, they're going to get boat raced. That's
Yeah.
possible,
Yeah.
But
That is what it is. But let's go to this week. We got a couple games this week that I want to highlight real quickly. Because I know you got to run, but Nebraska and Colorado. I think that game's going to be hype as hell. I think that Nebraska, Dylan Raiola, Colorado, Shador Sanders. I think this quarterback matchup is amazing. Travis Hunter is one of the best players in the country. Interested to hear what you have to say.
over or under 700 passing yards between the two quarterbacks.
Jesus, beast. I'm gonna say I like Nebraska's defense, but I think Shador Sanders is a special talent. To be honest, I think that let me just put it this way. I think Deion Sanders should get on his knees every day and think that lucky stars that his son is as good as he is, because he is saving his ass week after week after week. Like, Shador is a damn good player, and he's a fantastic player, and so is Travis Hunter. And I think Dylan Raiola is another one of those guys that's going to be, this is an NFL talent quarterback game. Raiola is going to be a talent. He's going to be an NFL draft pick for sure. I could always tell that from just his first game. Like, he's so smart with the ball. Shador, I mean, there were some things I didn't like about his game, but now I'm starting to like. I love the way he plays. I think he has a great heart, a big heart in the game, and I think he's going to be a good quarterback in the league. I think that, like, if he gets behind a good offensive line in the NFL, he could be really, really good and really, really special. So,
Travis Hunter. I listen. I never bought. I don't buy it from him. I think he's we haven't seen the last time we seen an athlete play both sides of the ball that much was probably R.W. McQuarters,
yeah,
who went to Oklahoma State. He was a guy that played damn near every snap. I've never believed it was realistic in the NFL to be able to do it. First of all, you have to be in offensive meetings. You have to be in defensive meetings.
yep.
If you're gonna return, you're gonna play special teams. You got to be in special teams meetings, and then I kind of agree with what Chauncey Gardner had to say about Travis Hunter in the sense that you're talking about grown men. You're talking about the elite of the elite. How are you gonna go out there on defense and cover Tyreek Hill, and then go on offense and then have to deal with Patrick Surtain, have to deal with Jalen Ramsey and some of the best corners in the league, and then expect to be productive? This will work against Big 12 competition, lower end competition, but that's not going to happen in the NFL. I honestly feel like he should be a corner. I think cornerback is his most fluid position.
All right, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. I think if he gets drafted, he's going to get drafted in the first round, period, because he's that great of an athlete.
Someone's going to take him because of his athleticism.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But is he better than Isaiah Simmons? If you look at Isaiah Simmons when he came out, he was the what is it? Oh, the linebacker of the year. He won the linebacker of the year award. I forgot which.
Wasn't he 8th overall? Yeah, Buckets. Yeah, Dick Buckets.
Yeah. He had the stats to prove it. It wasn't just he played a whole lot of snaps and wow, we're impressed by that. Like, he had linebacker stats too to back it up.
Yeah, I think Travis Hunter is gonna have to pick a position. I think that him playing all these snaps is not good for him in his long-term availability. I think, we talk about all the time with, like, running backs and everything like that. Like, when you talk about a guy like Travis Hunter, you think about, is he getting wore too thin? Like, will he last the rest of the season? Like, that's what some of the things. Everyone can say, like, oh, yeah, of course he will. But the reality of the situation is, like, you play as much as he plays and see if you last the whole season.
Thank you.
I know he's an elite athlete, but and I know he takes preparation. Like, people are talking about how he gets prepared for games. Amazing. He's already an NFL player. But at some point, like, that's not going to fly in the NFL because you're going to get beat and bruised quick. That's not going to happen.
No, I agree 100%. That's a huge concern I had. And it's like, okay, maybe you felt like when you first got to Colorado, you needed him to do that. I don't think you really need him to do that now. And I don't understand what Dion's whole angle is with trying to showcase this, like he's really going to do it at the next level. It's in his best interest. He should have started this offseason. It's in his best interest to pick a position and play it. Give the NFL film on what you are. If you're going to be a wide receiver at 6'1.5", and he's really thin too, and I think that the lack of bulk with him is different. But I agree with you 100%. If you think he's going to keep playing every single snap of every game, except for one or two snaps, things happen. Things snap for that matter.
You
Guys
get
get hurt.
yep. You get dinged and you get bruised. We know the game. Like we just know the game. And I feel like if there's one fault of Deion Sanders, this is a fault that he's gonna take. Because I mean, there's a lot of faults with Deion Sanders in terms of being a head coach of a college football program. Number one, your offensive line sucks still, and you're gonna get your son killed. Two, Travis Hunter should have picked a position. That's my opinion. I don't think he's doing Travis Hunter any good by
Right.
in terms of his long term potential. But all right, we'll move on to the last one. Texas and Michigan. I know Oregon, Boise State we were going to talk about, but we'll talk about that in the recap. Michigan State, Maryland, we talked about them earlier, but Michigan and Texas. This is a game that I think a lot of people are interested in. What's your read on this game? I think at one point, I think right now Texas is a 7.5-point favorite.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens, but I don't know, man. I think Michigan will come to play. It's just a matter of if they don't play offense and they allow Texas to get a little bit of a rhythm, it's lights out. Like they might as well just pack up and go home. And if we talked about Will Johnson, if you're Will Johnson, you're Mason Graham, you're Jay Sean Barnum, this is a chance for you to earn credit in terms of your NFL draft status. Kenneth Grant, Colston Loveland. Like Colston Loveland did all he could in the last game.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you don't have the quarterback to help him out. But I look at these guys and I say, okay, this is what it is. You're playing elite talent now, and this is kind of like a read on what's going to happen for the rest of the season. So,
Yeah. I think whether we view it as fair or not, all eyes in Ann Arbor are going to be on Sharon Moore and his team. Because if they go out there and they get destroyed by Texas, it doesn't matter whether you signed the contract yet or not. Like, we already understand how these fan bases in college are. They're worse than NFL fan bases.
oh yeah,
These ADs and these boosters and everybody and the student body, you just lost a guy who was a legend there. And, you had the entire offseason. You could have hit the portal and brought in a quarterback to at least get you through this year, to at least help Orgy. Now, maybe they saw some great things out of Alex Orgy during the offseason that made them feel comfortable putting packages in for him or whatnot.
But I think you should when they got a quarterback.
Yeah.
And that's their major fault. And you should have got a wide receiver too. Like, I don't think any of the wide receivers you have are bringing down the house. Like, you don't have Roman Wilson no more. You don't have Cornelius Johnson. You don't have those guys. So what do you have? And if you don't have a quarterback in college football, you're done. Like you're sunk. You're not going to beat any of the good teams. Wisconsin did it for a couple years, whatever.
They lost some offensive linemen too. That's one thing a lot of people aren't talking about. They lost some guys to the NFL.
Well, I think they lost 80% of their starting offensive unit. They lost the top 10 quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. No matter how you feel about J.J. McCarthy, he was top 10 quarterback. They lost Roman Wilson. They lost most of their line. They lost Blake Corum to the draft. They lost A.J. Barner to the draft. Like they lost an awful lot. Zach Zenner was a huge piece of their offensive line.
Yep.
And now you're trying to like recoup it, and it's hard as hell to recoup in college sports right now to be consistently good on the offensive line. And I know Sharon Moore is an offensive line coach, but like at the same time, like offensive line got to be better. But it doesn't matter if your offensive line's good because your running back can't read holes. The running back that everyone thinks is going to be a first round or second round pick. You don't have a quarterback that can make the right throws. So what are you? Like, what are you? That's the question. And I don't think we know that yet.
Yeah, I think just being completely honest about the whole situation, it wouldn't surprise me if this turned out to be a bad down year for Michigan. If
Yeah.
you factor in USC coming to town, Oregon coming to town, Washington having to play Texas, Ohio State is loaded as usual. It wouldn't surprise me if coming off a national championship, this was a down year for Michigan. Hurts me to say it, but at the end of the day, man, you lost a lot. You had the whole Connor Stallions crap hanging over your head. You lost a ton of players. Jim Harbaugh left. This should be treated honestly as a throwaway year.
Yep.
But will Sharon Moore get that type of freedom, or will
No.
they just pile on him about it and say they want him fired at the end of the season? Because if Michigan wins 3 games or 4 games,
Even 6.
he's going to be gone. I just it may not be fair to Sharon Moore, but more than likely he's going to be gone. Michigan's one of those programs.
Yep. Well, I look at their schedule and I look at like even like the away games, like at Washington, tough. You got to go to the West Coast. At Illinois, I think Illinois is a pretty decent team. You play USC at home. You play Oregon at home. You go to Ohio State. Like there's some losses here that I could see, but like you have to get this quarterback situation correct. I think what's going to keep Michigan afloat is the defense. That's what's going to keep them afloat. That's literally all it is, and that's the problem. Like that's. If they had an offense, this could be a national championship team, a playoff team, but they don't have a quarterback right now. They don't have a great running back like Blake Corum. And their offensive line's been, through one game, has been putrid. So,
well, they also lost Mikey, who was like the heart and soul of that defense.
he's such a smart player, and that's again, that's something that you can't replace. Now, I think that Will Johnson's good. I think that Jay Sean Barnum's good at Mason Graham, but that was a special team they had last year. I knew they were going to take it. This is offense isn't good, in my opinion. Defense is elite, in my opinion. But how far can elite defense take you with the schedule that you have? That's the question. And if you say maybe it could take you to 8, 9, 10 wins, I mean, if you get above 10 wins, I want whatever you're smoking.
Not in college football, not with no offense. Like this isn't the '97 Michigan Wolverines. Like you're not in this day and age in college football. You're not going anywhere with no offense. I don't care how good the defense is, and especially you looking at the competition that they have in the Big Ten, and then you hear guys like John Jansen on the radio saying that they're going to win 10 games and sneak into the playoff, and I'm like, based on, we're not even going to really get into that, but the whole thing is Michigan kind of maxed out last year. That team was loaded.
This weekend's going to tell us everything about this team in terms of where they're going. And if they get bombed by Texas, we know where we're going next week with what they're going to be talked about. If they somehow win, we're going to figure out how they won. And if they win by defense, okay, I guess that's all right. But I don't think they're winning by defense against Texas. So,
well, if they lose, they're going to go to the schedule and take Northwestern and move Northwestern all the way up to week 3.
Well, luckily they got Arkansas State, but
oh boy,
they got to win after that. But then they play USC, and that's not USC is not looking like a cakewalk like they were 4 weeks ago. Like I think a lot of people, like including some of them, bought and paid for Michigan shills in the media in Detroit. Every one of them was saying, "Oh, we're gonna beat USC." I don't think you can say that no more. Like I don't think USC is a shoe-in win anymore. I thought they would be, but they played pretty damn good. So we'll see what Michigan is this week, and we'll talk more about that game next week. And I'll do some videos on the Big Ten, Edge YouTube page. So follow that. We'll get you the link. But it's been a good podcast, Walt, and we're back at it. And I think people loved it. We maxed out at like 27 viewers at one point for our first podcast. That's pretty damn good. So thank you guys for listening. We will talk to you in another podcast about the Big Ten on the Big Ten Edge, and we're gonna see. Listen, it's only week 1, but we're gonna see what these teams are about week 2. I think that's where we're gonna really decipher who's good and who's not, and that's what's gonna go on. But Thanks, Walt, for I know you got to run, but it's been a good podcast, and I appreciate all your insight and everything. So
No problem, man. You know I enjoyed it.
I love talking ball with Walt. I think that's all good. I know he froze up, but we're all good. We're gonna unfreeze him. We're gonna unfreeze him for next week. So we'll see. We'll see you next week on the Big Ten Edge as we talk more Big Ten football and beyond, NFL draft, everything like that. So stay tuned to us, and we'll see you next week.
Big Ten.
Let's go.